Today's guest is Duncan Bone. Duncan is a jack of all trades, having been a youth pastor, personal trainer, and now entrepreneur and coffee shop owner. Yet what is most important and apparent about him is that he is the son of God. God has allowed a lot of adversity to confront Duncan and his family, yet they choose to remain patient and trust him through it all. I hope you're encouraged by this episode of Acts 4:20. Duncan, thanks for coming on the channel. If you want to start off just kind of with your background, how you came to know Jesus as Lord and Savior.
I was, very blessed, the great family growing up. Kind of grew up in a family home, a good Christian family home, and my father and mother, they just really instilled in me good things of the Lord. And as any situation, you kind of get, graft in with the way you're being raised at first, and it's kind of how that all started. And I was 8 years old when I decided I wanted to, give my life to Christ. But what does an 8-year-old know? Um, and Now that I currently have an 8-year-old, I both know the profound nature of how much they do know and don't know. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where it got started, where I made the decision for myself. Fast forward into high school, probably would have been the summer after my freshman year of high school. I had spent the 5th through 10th grade going to a private Christian school, where I was studying. Always had a Bible class, always had a lot of Christian people around me. Was kind of ingratiated into that culture. Um, Learned so much that I came to a point where I was very head knowledge heavy with my understanding of God. Um, but was starting to get to that age where there was a lot of things being put on the table of invitations to participate in different things that may or may not have been very God honoring events and situations. And so I had this kind of conflict within myself. Like, I know God is real. I know this whole faith thing is real. But it seems like there's a whole other life that is very appealing, that I had stayed away from entirely. But, it was kind of coming of age, I guess. I played sports and played football and was on varsity my freshman year. It was small private school. And so I was around a lot of older people and, just kind of in that arena. And so I just remember that summer getting invited to a lot of like graduation parties and that kind of thing. And I just I couldn't sleep one night and went outside. This was in the summer. It was a nice night. Lived out in the country, laid in my front yard, looking up at the sky. And I was just like, all right, God, I know you're there. I can't deny that. I have too much knowledge. I have too much understanding, been taught so many things, but are you worth it? Is the life to follow you and to live for you instead of these cool things that are kind of living for myself? Is that worth it? Is that what I'm supposed to do? Is that my calling? Um, and I was just like, God, I don't know. I need something, and growing up, my dad used to always tell me, he's just like, if you seek the Lord, you will find him. And so when you're ever in doubt, you like go to the Lord, say like, our God, like, help me out here, help me. Um, and and so as I was laying there just praying, it's like, I don't know, God, I don't care what it is. I feel it's cliche to ask for a sign, but I don't care. Give me something, maybe like a shooting star or something. I don't know. I'm laying here in the middle of the night, and I kid you not, the second I said shooting star, like in my head, didn't say anything out loud. To this day, it's the biggest shooting star I've ever seen in my entire life. So I'm laying out in my
Wow.
yard,
That's
kind of surrounded. My front yard is kind of surrounded by a tree line. House was back in the woods, and it was like a horizon to horizon uh, shooting star, like comet type thing, and just my heart stopped. I was like, like, okay, 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 I hear you. And I just remember at that time running inside. My sister was a couple years older than me, and she was believer, and I woke her up. It was probably 2, 3 in the morning. I was like, Amanda, Amanda, you'll never believe this. What? So I told her the whole story, and so I got a good chuckle out of that. And that was kind of a bigger one of the, I mean, yes, my shooting star moment. Not everybody gets those kind of things, but I think that's what I needed to really shake me awake, or whatnot. And so at that point, I was still going to the private Christian school, and I decided, because I was going into my sophomore year, and I was debating, um, did I want to transfer back to the public school, a bit bigger public school, or stay there? And from that moment on, I knew in my soul that um, I needed to put myself in a position to be more in ministry minded situations. Like, I mean, I've often felt the strong pull of for those who are given much, much will be required. Um, and so I've had such good circumstance, and that I just felt I needed to use what God given me wisely. And so started kind of my journey towards ministry of one capacity. Transferred schools, went to the public school. Uh, there was also a little draw for football. I was playing football, and so going to a little bit bigger school, I'd get better looks for college and stuff. So there was other factors in that as well. But um, yeah, so I ended up going to the public school and graduated from there, and just very blessed in that circumstance. And the Lord's been with me ever since. And man, I can't imagine doing life without being driven and guided by the Lord. And as well, I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. Um, having experienced some pretty intense things in life that my wife and I have often said cannot imagine going through this kind of stuff without our faith, and with the Lord walking through it with us. So yeah, that's a little bit my origin
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, that's cool. That's as you were talking about the shooting star, I was just like, wow, that's crazy. Like, I mean, that shooting star, a lot of people could have seen, like a ton of people could have seen, but it was literally at that split second, just from you talking about it, that God did that. And that's just, yeah, it's cool. We serve a God who's so personal and willing to do crazy, absurd things to get our attention.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's,
the
thank you for
one of the
sharing that. That's
things.
cool.
Yeah, one of the things that just like why to me it was so powerful is like you're laying down staring up at a night sky with not a cloud in sight. There's a good chance you could see a shooting star, right? Like that's not an unheard of thing.
Mhm.
But it was so
Sure.
much about timing
Yeah.
and the audacity of it, where it was just like it wasn't like this little like, oh wait, did my
Yeah.
eyes trick me and I see a little something? It was like, all right, you
Hmm.
will you will know this was from me. This is not a mistake. This is not, you know,
Yeah.
well, there was kind of a little one. Could I get a little bit bigger shooting star? It's just there was no mistaking of that. I was like, well, that's the biggest shooting star I've seen in my entire
Yeah.
life. And now and I'm in my late 30s, and to this day, it's the biggest one I've ever seen. So yeah, it was just like, all right,
Yeah.
you know, I'm gonna give this to you, but that means you're gonna follow me. You're gonna do some stuff for me. So that's kind of how I've felt ever since. It's like, all right, God's gonna be faithful, then I need to as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yep. Yeah. So, um, moving on, uh, yeah, what was kind of the next thing in your life where or the next major thing that you want to talk about where you just saw God working? Uh, yeah, go for it.
Oh man, I feel like there's been a lot of like good things that have happened in my life that is God working right now. I have a very big short term memory, we'll call it, just because of my current circumstance in life. But yeah, so
Yeah.
um, after high school, I could tell you stories for days of the way I just have seen God very specifically guide my life. Um, you
Hmm.
know, things that are just like total way out there. I mean, I could even go back before the shooting star thing of how I ended up going to a private school in the first place, and because I had gone to the public school until fifth grade, and I transferred, um, and so then a couple of years later, I was playing. I was in fifth and sixth grade. At the private school. I played flag football, um, and there's things you do that you just don't realize have any kind of impact anywhere. But you don't know a tiny little thing that could quite literally change the course of your life. And so in sixth
Hmm.
grade, I was playing flag football, and it was pretty intense. There was all the little schools in the area, and school I went to, and this other local kind of private school were like rivals. It was intense in fifth and sixth grade. You know what I mean? Um, and so we were in the flag football championship. It was a big deal, and my team was the team to beat, and we lost. We lost in championship. Just devastated. But after the game, I, for whatever reason, was just like, you know what? I was like, I need to work on my character. I need to do this. And so after the game, I stayed and I walked out onto the field while they were getting all their little tiny little plastic uh gold medals for winning the championship. I stood out there and was just like, all right, good job, guys. You earned it. They're our rivals. We didn't like them. So never in my wildest dreams would I think that me just kind of applauding for the other team would I think that they'd do anything. So fast forward 2 years, and so we're going into eighth grade, um, and this kid shows up to the school. This little fiery Italian kid named Francesco Pays, uh, and he comes up to me. He's like, "Duncan." I'm like, "Yeah, who are you?" He goes, "You know my cousin." I'm like, "Who's your cousin?" He goes, "It's Freddie." And it's just like, "No, I don't." And so he tries to explain that his cousin went to this other school, this other private school, and I played against him in flag football. And what had happened was his Freddie's mom had seen me go out there and do that applause thing, and was like, "Wow, that's a kid. That's a cool kid." And she like talked to parents and just kind of found out who I was. I was like, "That was very impressive." And so she told her brother, who then ultimately sent his son to the same school that I was at. I was like, that must be a good school because there's some good kids there. And so Francesco Pays is to this day. So that was in eighth grade, and I'm 37 years old. He's to this day he's my best friend. We've been best friends since eighth grade. Talk about brother in Christ. It's just helped walk me through so many different circumstances.
Hmm.
Um, it's just like like God was working on my life in sixth grade for me to be like, all right, like be bigger than sports. There's real humans over there. They're not evil, even though they're your rival. And lo and behold, a couple years later from that little applaud action, I end up, meeting my best friend through, happenstance of somebody talked to somebody who saw the thing and did the thing. And yeah. And so I've often compared my relationship with Francesco to like David and Jonathan of the Bible, where there's just like we became brothers. I mean,
Hmm.
from an early age, we
Hmm.
were just tight as can be. We had that bond of the Lord and His call in our lives. Because by all accounts, we shouldn't have been best friends. I mean, he lived an hour away. He commuted an hour in eighth grade to go to private school. He was only there for 1 year, and then he
Wow.
transferred. Originally, they were going to move, so we went to school for 1 year together. Um, and then we went to each other's church camp that summer after eighth grade and just became best friends. And
Hmm.
yeah, so he ended up getting me to go to his college too after we graduated, and I ended up at Spring Arbor University, and which is where well, first I went to Northwood to play football, and then I transferred into Spring Arbor, who doesn't have a football team.
Mm.
But at Spring Arbor is where I met my wife. And so, you know, the small connections, the stories that you could connect my meeting of my wife to applauding for an opponent. Uh, 15 years earlier, or whatever it was. So there's so many little stories I have
Yeah.
uh, of how God has just like, you could just see that the guidance and direction of like, nah, Duncan, you're kind of an idiot, so I need to get somebody to help walk alongside you. You're not going to figure this out on your own, so here, let me help you. So yeah, that's I have stories
That's
for days
funny.
about this in my life, but yeah, so it's good. And then um, yeah, so more modern. I've been around the church. My first job out of college was youth ministry. Did that for a little bit, and was just so blessed to be a part of ministry. God, kind of brought me in a different direction after that. I wasn't there for too long. Um, got married right out of college, and so just through the years, Lord's been so faithful, and um, you don't realize how God is uh, uh, helping build you and strengthen you for
Mm,
things to come. Um, so 4 years ago, my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. So Elizabeth was originally was stage 3, and then they did all the treatments, and then it came right back in stage 4. So it really kind of shakes you awake. You start seeing the world and seeing things different when you take time to address the mortality of the people you love and the people closest to you. Um, and man, in those 4 years, it's just yeah, it's hard. Don't even know where to start sometimes of the ways God's been faithful and walked with us. Um, so right now, my wife's doing well. Just to kind of put that little cherry on top. Health is good. There's still stuff there, so it's not. She's not fully in the clear, but she's been doing a bunch of different things, and um,
mm,
yeah, it's just in the craziest times in life. Um, that's when the Bible comes to life the most. You can read things and kind of have that head knowledge, and you start to understand. People talk all the time about writing the words on your heart. Like you want God's word written on your heart and be part of who you are. And you don't realize how big a deal that is until the things written on your heart overflow, and you have to rely on those things. And the one scripture that was super powerful to us right in the beginning, diagnosis and the chaos of um, you know having to start to ask the question, uh, what if life ends sooner? What if my wife is going to die when she's young? I mean, we're in our 30s. We got 4 kids, 4 boys. And so you start asking different questions, and there's an anxiousness that kind of comes with that. Dealing with the unknown of disease and potential death. Um, and scripture of a peace that goes beyond understanding. There were so many times, and still to this day, but especially early on, where we would get news or we were waiting for news of results or different things. And Elizabeth and I would look at each other and be like, "Mm, I'm good. Are you good? Yeah, that's weird. Like, why are we so chill right now? Like we're pretty sure we're
mm,
about to, or we just got some like really awful prognosis stuff, but I'm good. You good? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Now don't get me wrong, there's plenty of uh tears shed and weeping and reaching out to the Lord in that way. Um, but man, God's presence in walking with us and through it all with us is palpable. Like you don't realize
mm,
how much you're leaning on him until you can't walk. And your legs go out from underneath you. You got no energy. You've got nothing left. Um, and God's just carrying you through it all, and seeing him in powerful ways in inanimate objects and in the world, and then in more tangible, real ways of the body of Christ. Other believers coming alongside us and supporting us in innumerable ways. I mean, it's been
mm,
wild to see just the vastness of God's provision in one of the most brutal times of our life. Um, and so it's just like, it makes me think back to the old shooting star, where it's just like, our God, I can't deny it. I cannot deny your presence and your, um, you know, the things that came together and the ways we were cared for and taken care of. Like, that doesn't happen naturally. It was supernatural in every way, shape, and form. So yeah, like I said, I got stories for days on the way God has been with us and used his people to love us and support us in the last 4 years. Um, because typically in conventional wisdom, stage 4 is a death sentence. It's not a matter of if, but when.
mm,
Um, and we're 4 years into the journey, and she's stable and things are chill right now. She hasn't, all signs of everything has been shrinking and going backwards. All of her blood work's improving. The tumors are almost gone right now, and the beautiful part of it is that our hope is in eternity. It's not in today. It's not in, this body.
mm.
So regardless of outcomes, we still have that peace and that hope that, um, we're called to be good stewards of our time, not to know how much time that is. So we've have the peace when it's chaos, but we're also able to have joy and peace, and avoid the anxiety and the depression and the things that could come with uh, you know a conventional wisdom, uh, bad prognosis. But yeah, so that's a very 30,000 foot view of God's faithfulness in the last 4 years, and we've been uh, yeah, just so blessed um, to have God walk alongside us and carry us through it. Really, so yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's tough. So, as far as like communication with friends and family through it all, and even your kids, um, I guess those are kind of two separate things. Like, has anyone been like, "Gosh, how are you guys not completely depressed?" Or
Yeah.
has no one really asked that question?
Maybe not so much in those specific words. The What we get more often than
Sure.
not are people who will say, "I don't know how you do it." Like, I
Yeah.
would I would be a mess, or um,
Mhm.
so like, there's a certain degree of um sensitivity I think that people have with it. They don't want to pile on.
Yeah, no doubt.
Um, so
Yep.
but yeah, the interesting thing has been uh eh, conversations with people who uh don't have the hope for eternity, has been the
Mhm.
interesting part, because while they don't ask, because most of the folks in that realm I haven't necessarily had like deeper conversations with, but you can just tell by the conversations, like when they're asking, "Hey, how's your wife doing?" I get that question all the time. um
Yeah.
and you kind of explain it, and then it's just like, oh man, you're in my thoughts. Like, wow, that's hard. There's a lot that doesn't register, where it's like,
Mm.
to have a joy and to still be my normal chipper,
mm,
goofy self that I am. Yeah, and it's like that. There's like this expectation that I'm going to be somber and that I'm going to be like this, like, oh, life's so hard and things are so terrible. Um, and I'm. It also helps that I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I'm usually a little bit more, uh, you know, joyful in general, but you've seen it before, right? Like you've seen things happen to people and it changes them.
mm,
It's the weight of it can crush you. And I will by no means claim to be chipper and happy all the time. There's been plenty of tears and weeping
mm,
and saying, God, why? Like, why is this happening? What? Why? Why me? Why her?
mm.
We have kids. Like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. There's plenty of calling out to the Lord, but um, yeah, when it just seems like anytime I've had a conversation more than just like a quick in passing with somebody who does not have a deep understanding of eternity with the Lord, um, it's just there's just like this like blank stare of like, oh man, I don't know. I don't want to. I don't even want to talk about that. I don't think about it. It's like
Yeah.
change the subject. So yeah, it's been an interesting dynamic in that front, and um, it's a good opportunity, because I know why I'm still able to have joy and
Mhm.
in this season, and um, have a peace that goes beyond understanding. I know where that comes from, and it is a supernatural thing. It's not not innate. My nature is to try to figure out how to solve problems and to
Mm.
solve what several trillion dollars worth of research hasn't solved is you know can keep you up at night. But
Yeah.
um yeah, I mean, presence of the Lord is it just changes things and puts different
Mm.
perspective on everything.
Yeah. And, um, yeah, and communicating with your kids. Um, so 4 years. So, um, you said your youngest is 4, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was so we identified she found the cancer because of when he was born. So
Okay.
she had, let me take it back. There was a year and a half prior to his birth, almost a year and a half, that she had felt a lump and actually had it checked out twice, and they told her it was nothing.
Hmm.
Um, so problem was she was pregnant and or nursing and all that, and so with the ultrasound they couldn't see through, all the milk ducts and stuff, so they couldn't see
Sure.
the stuff behind it. Anyways, but after he was born, she couldn't nurse on that side, and
Mm,
so uh, she could nurse just fine on the one side, but not on the other. And so that's when they ended up sending her to some specialists who then were like, "No, you need to get this checked out in a different way."
mm.
So yeah, talking to the kids about it, um, very different per kid.
Yeah.
A lot different conversations with my 11-year-old, but you figure 4 years, he was 7 when it
Mhm.
happened. Um, and so most of the time, initially for the first probably couple of years, it was a lot of like, "Oh, mommy's sick. Mommy's got another doctor's appointment." Like,
Mm,
um, "Oh, that's cancer. That's a bad thing. Like, what is that?" And so um, those conversations early on, it was I guess easy because it's just like, yeah, mommy's sick and she's getting some treatment.
mm.
And there's no sense on putting the stress or the weight of those kind of things on a seven
Sure.
year old or a 4-year old. James was 4 at the time, my second.
Mm,
Um, and so as they're getting older, and in that time, I mean, Malachi is my oldest. He's you know he gets things, like he understands that.
mm.
And one of the blessings and the curse of having gone through this is that um everybody there's anybody who's a certain degree of connected to us, if there is a similar circumstance, they reach out to us. So we get phone calls to
Mm.
this day, probably once a month at least. Somebody saying, "Hey, so and so just got a new diagnosis. Could you talk to them, or what would you recommend looking into?"
Yeah.
You guys have processed this and handled this so well. What would you do? Um, and so we actually had a stretch last year. Um, so it was almost a year ago to the day, um, December and January of last year. So 24 and 25, there were three women who had passed away from cancer within 6 weeks, all of
Mm,
which were between 30 and 42 years old,
mm,
all of which had kids, some of which my boys knew. Um, and so there was definitely some different conversations that year, that winter, um, with my two oldest, because like one instance there's a guy that I had met in passing, um, didn't know him super well, knew of him, um, who his wife had a super rare, really aggressive cancer pop up, and it was like they found out and she was gone. It was like 6 weeks from the time they went to the hospital, time she passed. Well, they had three boys, almost identical ages as my boys. So I've
mm.
got four boys. His boys were ages like that. So
Okay.
like right now it's like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11.
Mm,
Um, and so when they went through that, we had them over like multiple times, and we still to this day have them over. They become good friends of ours.
mm.
But have a different conversation because now my boys have friends that are their age who have lost their mom to cancer.
Yep.
So like having those conversations about the unknown and the beauty and the hope of eternity, and that your friend's mommy is in heaven, um and just like that, while sadness and mourning is allowed and it's healthy and it's actually a godly trait. The shortest verse in the Bible is Jesus wept. Like
Mm,
God mourns for us, and it's like these kind of feelings are not bad things, and we can be sad for our friends and their circumstance. We also have a joy and a hope that for eternity, and so it just there's been some pretty incredible conversations um, about spiritual world and
mm,
eternity and God and what our faith, the importance of our faith in all that, and how it doesn't necessarily guarantee good outcomes of what we desire um, on earth, but the ultimate outcome is eternity, and so
mm.
that's already taken care of, and we don't have to be just crushed by these things because you know the our life on earth is but a drop in the ocean,
Mm.
like in
Yep.
light of eternity. It's a phrase I use a lot. um the time we have on this earth is so short compared to what eternity is. um I've used a analogy. Actually, I think I have a piece of paper here. It's easier to draw it out than I've used with my boys. um Hi, there you go. Ready for this? Let's see if I can get it in there. All
Yep.
right, so our life are two dots on a line. Eternity doesn't stop. Where this second dot is, whether it's here or here, doesn't matter because of how big this is.
Mm.
It can, sure, we can be sad if somebody is gone before we think they should be. Um,
Yeah.
and even when some people, grandparents pass away of old age, it's still sad when they're gone. There's
Mm,
still mourning and sadness that can occur, but um, the beauty in eternity is that we'll all be there together. Uh, that those who've given their life to Christ and um, accepted the salvation. So
mm.
yeah, it's just conversations with my boys that I never thought I would have had at their age. you know,
Yeah.
Things that you feel like are more mature conversations, but they're asking the questions. It's not just, oh, here, sit down. I need to explain these things to you. It's, Daddy, what about, where is heaven? Like,
Yeah.
questions that you're just like, well, that's, it's there. um, the questions you don't see coming is, I, This guy I went to high school with, his wife posted. So he passed away from a brain tumor not too long ago.
mm,
Um, and one of the questions, or I guess it was about a year ago now, um, one of the questions her daughter asked her was, "Does heaven have a phone so I can call dad?"
mm.
You know, like things are just like, like how do you know, like the things that how a kid processes this kind of
Yeah.
stuff is so different from how we would, but man, does it bring up some awesome conversations. So
Mm.
yeah, it's been good. Honestly, the two younger ones, they're just too young. It
Yeah.
doesn't hasn't registered. Jonathan,
Mhm.
my third, he's 6. Um, like even at this age, at 6, that well, she's been mostly good now that he's starting to get a little bit more of an age of understanding of some of the things.
Mhm.
So he doesn't remember most of the like he barely remembers when she didn't have hair from all the chemo. She barely
Mm.
remembers he barely remembers the 3 weeks we spent in Mexico for different treatment. Like so the younger ones they just um they didn't quite grasp what was going on. So there's
Sure.
not much to say there.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, for you, I mean, just thinking about being in your position, so obviously going through the sickness on her part, she's had to have been just wiped at different times, just like no energy, can't do anything.
Mhm.
Um, and like you with like your work and then also taking care of the kids at the same time, like in some of those seasons, I guess like how did you see God move in those? Um, if you want to just kind of talk to some of that.
That I kind of mentioned earlier the whole hands and feet of Christ, the body of Christ. Like I had so much help.
Mm,
It was I ended up I have a blog out there that I kind of been keeping posted about all the stuff that we've been going through, and I tried along the way to just explain some of the ways that people have helped. Um, yeah, I mean, not I don't want to discredit it either. There's a lot of people that have helped that were not believers as well, wanted to
sure.
support us. So, but there's just so many examples of ways that people will just like figure out somehow to take things off of my plate so that I could,
Mm,
do the things that nobody else could. Nobody else could be the father to my boys.
yep.
Nobody else can, you know, do the things behind the scenes with my wife. Yeah. So,
Mm,
um, I'll see if I can just rip off a couple examples. Like early on, so she had a diagnosis in October of 21. That following summer, is just like I had a ton of stuff going on to take care of my family. And so everything that was not completely essential, I didn't do. I just like, well, doesn't get done, doesn't get done. And so that same year, uh, was it that same summer? What about one more year later? So not the summer of 22, but the summer of 23, we ended up having an incredible blessing and being able to buy a house and had some property, had 5 acres. Um, and so this was a sweet setup for us. It was such a place of peace and refuge for my wife and for all of us. But at the same time, 5 acres out in the country, there's stuff to do to keep the
mm,
property up. Like and there was a time where I forget, it was either my pastor or somebody in the church was just like, Duncan, how can we help? I was just like, well, I planted a garden and I haven't touched it since we planted it. Basically, there's some things around the house. If we could get some help, maybe with some pulling weeds or something, that'd be great. And 12 people from our church showed up, and
mm,
within a few hours, my whole property, garden and everything included, was like better than I could have done if I was spending all the time on it myself. And then so that was the initial thing, and then one of the ladies that had come out that day, didn't know her. Like somebody in the church, but like kind of never had been around her really. She got my number and was like, "Hey, do you mind if I come back?" I'm like, "Sure. What you gonna do?" She's like, "You have a weed whip?" I'm like, "Yep." Okay. Showed up. She's like, "Just leave it outside with gas in it for me." Okay. She ended up coming out all summer long. Like she just texted
Wow.
me, "Hey, sit it outside." Like we ripped all the ditches out in front of the yard, all around the pond, where you're like trying not to fall into the water. I had all these big rock bed things that got all grown over, and she just weeded them all. And like, it's like it was such an incredible blessing that it was
Mm,
just like I looked at it, it was like, well, it'd be really nice to not look at 4 foot tall weeds, but I'm gonna stay inside and hang out with my wife.
yeah.
So people showed up and did stuff like that, and you know, um, when we first moved into the house, had 4 or 5 people show up to help us paint it. Before we actually moved in, and
Mm,
just so many things, so many things. Um,
mm,
just yeah, people, people.
mm,
Um, And I mean, I was also very blessed to be in a position to have flexible work. I own a coffee shop, and I had an incredible staff that just took over everything and um, basically ran my business for me for 2, 3 years. I was,
mm,
you know, here's the paychecks. Thanks, guys. Like, um, so we had just an amazing staff, and a couple people on staff were unbelievable. And it's one of those things where I wish I was had a billionaire tech company is what I own instead of a coffee shop, so I could pay people accordingly for all that they did for me. Um, but yeah, I mean, those were the things that you know just helped us survive all that.
mm,
Just I was able to be home. I could, I, I would still go get milk sometimes for the coffee shop. Got to keep the lattes flowing, but um, yeah, I mean, it was a crazy season. um these people came out of the woodworks to help us both with just
mm,
like everyday tasks and with bigger things. I mean, the after so my wife did all the conventional stuff. She did chemo, radiation, surgery, then everything came back. Then we went to Mexico, and that whole trip was paid for us.
mm,
Had a community step up, and they're just like, nope, you need to do that. Here you go. And that was, if you look into alternative treatment overseas or in different countries, it's not cheap. So we, yeah, just so many people, the Lord put in our life to bless us, and
mm,
in prayer, in finances, in tasks. Um, yeah, it was wild,
mm.
pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on 5 here. Um, do you have anything else you wanna throw in? Are all set? I don't wanna cut you off, but I wanna be respectful.
I gotta think I got all the key points in there.
Yeah. No, that's a lot. There's a lot there.
Yeah,
Um, thank you so much. Um, yeah, and just I've been following a little bit, just here and there. I'm not on Facebook a ton, but, um, yeah, you guys will come to mind every once in a while, and I'm praying for you guys, uh, and just encouraged by you guys,
well,
and
thanks, Blake.
appreciate you.
Appreciate
Yeah.
you reaching out, and I'm always glad to share what the Lord's been doing. So,
Mm,
I've actually been going through them again, but I've been going through all the old blogs, and trying to remember some of the things because I'm starting to write again, write a book,
mm,
and um, yeah. So put a lot of stuff on that blog, and um, yeah, I've been wanting to make sure we remember the things that have happened, and the
mm,
ways that God has been faithful, and that people have been, His instrument in the meantime. So,
mm.
if you ever need more stories, you could probably read through some of those in there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. When are you hoping to publish your book?
I got a lot more to write still. I'm doing
Okay.
two different things. I'm doing a companion's guide to cancer diagnosis, which is basically
Okay.
just like a here's the things you should and should not do, and here's the things you should and should not say to help people that
Mm,
are walking alongside someone. Um, and then I'm a couple chapters into writing a book called The Companion. So you know,
Hmm,
being able to walk alongside what it means to walk alongside people, all the varying degrees
hmm,
of that, and using our experience with this diagnosis, but also other things just in life in general.
hmm,
Um, you know, there's there's not a lot of good content on how to be a friend.
mm,
So companion is a little bit broader verbiage and thought process, both in significant other companionship and being a good friend. So
yeah.
yeah, that's sooner the better, but it'll probably still take me a while. So far I'm on pace for about a chapter per year, I think is what I've been doing. So started doing it when I was in Mexico with my wife and for her treatment, and um, got a lot. I go in spurts where I get some done and I don't touch it for 6 months. So
Mhm.
hopefully before I, you know, turn all gray, have I'm starting to get some streaks of gray, but you know, I think that might be a requirement to be an author, like to have big gray beard. Is that a thing?
Yeah. There definitely are some that have that.
uh,
Yeah,
so someday.
cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Alright, well,
Appreciate you, Blake.
appreciate you.